Well, welcome everyone. We're going to do a lesson today on semi-abstract buildingscapes. And I thought we made that word up, but it's a legitimate word. Check it out. And I'm really excited about it. There are so many artists all over the world that are working with this concept where you're not doing absolute realism. You're actually going beyond the boundaries of realism and perspective. So I wanted to start out by showing you some of the real masters around the world. This is a gentleman, I'm going to murder their names, but it's Kees van Eist from the Netherlands. But see, you can see the abstract theme right there. This is another one by the same gentleman. Here you can see it's more semi-abstract because now he's actually giving us some buildings, but very free, very interpretive. And I like the cool color that he chose. Here's an artist who's a personal friend of mine, Sterling Edwards. He's from the USA, actually South Carolina. And he's a very stylized painter, and you can see the buildings, but you can also see the beautiful abstract design. And I like the cool focus of this picture, and I love the diagonal. Right diagonal, left diagonal, and the beautiful movement of the white shapes. That's something we're going to be concerned about. And this is an incredible artist from Australia, John Lovett. And his work involves almost entirely buildings. But look at how he kind of just tells you where he wants you to look. He brings in these featured center of interest areas. And see, that's another thing I want to work with. I want you to be concerned about developing a center of interest in your work, just like Mr. Lovett. Here's another one, absolutely incredible. This has such gorgeous colors. He actually uses white, which on the kind of thing we're doing today, if you want to use some white, fine. And I do like the introduction of the birds to give just a little more life to this piece. And this gentleman's been around a long time. His name is Angelo Bellini from Italy. And you can see the layered formations of land. But if you look, there's a lot of buildings that are built into it. Distant buildings, buildings closer to the foreground. I think I've always loved this gentleman's work, and you'll see some of my own work later that was influenced by him. This gentleman is really, really famous. His name is Herman Peckel, and he's from Australia and considered one of the top artists. He and Alvaro Castanet and Joseph Bukovic, and I know I'm not doing a really good job on these pronunciations, but Herman Peckel and those other two gentlemen are considered the three amigos. And they do these gorgeous buildingscapes. Now this is a view, I think, from the top of the roofs in Paris, but look at how the distant buildings are very soft. He does beautiful atmospheric work. I love this very strong dark path here, and then the very strong light path leading us through. Beautiful work. Here's another one by Mr. Peckel. And this one's getting more realistic. But again, I like his atmospheric way of handling buildings, so I just had to show it to you. Now, this is an artist from the USA. Her name is Judith Bergeson, and she is a strong design person. Her design work is out of this world. And you can see the beautiful design, very abstract, but it does kind of look like buildings. And this gentleman is from Malaysia. I've been kind of following his work, Tan Suz Chang. And you can see the beautiful white path going through. You can see buildings in focus, out of focus, dark path moving us through. I think this is beautiful. And this is a gentleman too. I've got his books and I've been following his work. He's from England, and his name is Mike Bernard. And you can see the beautiful design, again, the beautiful path of light. We're going to be working with that. Beautiful path of dark leading us through. Limited color, very abstract, but we know they're buildings. It's just that they don't have to be perfect. You can just make things up, wipe things out, add things in. You can work with textures. It's going to be a fun lesson. And then Mike Bernard again, a very similar idea. This time, very strong path of dark, very strong path of light. All the things we're going to be talking about. And he has fun. Look at the circles he's just added to be stones, dots, more circles. Very free. I really like it. And you can, this line you see isn't part of the picture. I took this out of one of my books. And this gentleman I admire greatly. This is Gerald Brommer. He's an artist from the United States. An excellent teacher. He's been teaching for many, many years. I'm sure many of you have watched his videos. He is a master at abstracting buildings and landscapes. So again, you can see here, there are buildings, but look at the beautiful colors. Look at that beautiful path of light. Look at the darks. Look at the limited colors, the beautiful textures, all the things that we want to get involved in. So let's get started. Well, I'm ready to start the semi-abstract buildingscapes. And I always like to give you a little introduction because, I just think painting real perfect buildings, it's tedious. And sometimes you're just not inspired to keep going. And I think the suggestion of just working with buildings is going to be fun. You're not going to get bogged down with precise depiction of the buildings. We're just going to take off and break the boundaries. I'm really excited about showing you all the textures and paths of light and paths of dark, all the things that are going to just happen. We're going to start with a very wet underpainting. Here's an example, and you can see I'm going for textures and suggestions of buildings. I'm developing this path of light. I'm working on a path of dark, and the whole idea is when you lead the viewer into the center of your picture, not the dead center, but here and there into the center and out again, this becomes your center of interest. Every painting should have some kind of focal area that entertains the viewer. So this is what we're going to do, and a lot of this is just going to happen during the underpainting because when you work on wet paper, colors flow, and the whole thing there's creative energy that you can't get any other way. I'm going to start by showing you some of the work I've done through the years with the concept of landscape and also with the concept of buildings and landscapes. Now this one is more concerned with just simple landscape forms, but you can see how free I am. I've even used some spray and a lot of shapes, very hard edge shapes. This is a lesson I just love. This one is also landscape, but in here you can see I've added some buildings. And again, I'm breaking it up with shapes, but I'm keeping some elements of realism. So again, a very delightful way. I love doing landscapes. And now I'm really excited to add buildings into it. This is one I did on location in Siena, Italy. And I did this with a piece of mat board. Just literally scraped the textures. And then when I wanted the textures to be wet, I would just spray in it and move the paint until it softened. And you're going to see me doing some of that today in the buildings. This is the painting that inspired this whole lesson. I really like this one. And here you can see I'm doing a real zigzag, mostly focusing on dark shapes. But today we'll see what happens when you do a wet and wet underpainting. You just have to be open. Whatever happens, you're going to like it. But you can see here that I'm leading the viewer. Some of these are more like buildings, although it is semi-abstract. If you look at this, it's hard to say. I just add chimneys and lines and interesting shapes, stuff that looks like ladders, but I don't think I'd want to use that ladder to get up there. There's no window to get in, you know. You just have fun with this. So up here I got more abstract again, and then every now and then a little element of realism, and then more abstract. But I do like this one. This one was really fun to do too. You can see here I'm trying to develop more of a passage of light. But I just had fun with the buildings, just kept putting facades, some turned, some facing forward, some like towers, some like many, many windows. Oh boy. Well, I'd like to go over the list of materials. I really like this. It's a way for you to get everything ready before you start. Because when you're working wet into wet, you don't want to stop and go look for an article that you need. So for starters, just some old credit card, or just like Days In. And we're going to be cutting these up during the process. Another object that would work just as well are these pieces of mat board, just randomly cut. And the edges, some are thicker, some are thinner, depending on the weight of the mat board. Any mat board will do. So a number of mat board pieces are good. You'll definitely need a pair of scissors. The scissors are going to be used, let's say we decide to make windows in our picture, but we don't want the windows too big. We'll just cut it. And then other things that can happen, these edges get soiled, and you just cut the end off, and you've got a brand new tool. It's pretty cool. And we're going to be using wax paper. This creates beautiful textures. We'll probably be using these stencils. These happen to be stencils that I felt looked a lot like, oh, it could be like building blocks. I like the movement in this one. This one just has interesting little broken textures. This one almost looks like it could be building blocks or stones. And same with this, nice little broken shapes. So stencils, look at what you have in stencils, and maybe those will be perfect for you. Now when you're using a stencil, you also should have a Mr. Clean Magic Eraser. And I never use this full size. What I do is before I begin, I just cut this into little pieces. And I wet each piece. You'll see me do it during the demonstration. This is a phenomenal thing. We also are going to be using just table salt. And I'd like to have it in a little container so I can just grab it. I don't want to have to take the salt, pour it in my hand. My hands might be wet. This way I can control, see, because very often I only want a very small amount. Another subject I'd like to encourage you to try is just a simple roller. This one has a hard surface. It could be one with a foam surface. But rollers are, I do like the harder, firmer surface. This is only 2 inches. It could be 3 inches. It could be 4 inches. Doesn't make any difference. But if you have a brayer, or sometimes called a roller, it's awfully nice to use. Another really exciting, colorful tool are these watercolor pencils. These particular pencils happen to be woodless. I absolutely love these. But any watercolor pencil will work. These happen to be the Karlyn Dash, and I like them because I have such a variety of colors that I can literally pick a color that's really close to what I might need. I just basically keep the warm on one side, cool on the other, and it works out pretty well. And then to use that, we're going to need 100 grit sandpaper, so I just have little pieces of sandpaper available. And last but not least, we need a very fine mister. And you can tell a fine mister by how narrow that inner part of the sprayer is. And this gives a very nice, just soft mist. So with all our tools assembled, we're ready to get started. Okay, we're ready to go. Now I'm going to be using Arches 140-pound cold press paper, my favorite. And always, always look for the watermark. So when the watermark is, when you can read it, this is Arches 140-pound paper. It says Arches, France. When you can read that watermark, that's the front of your paper. It's also, if you look closely, much smoother surface, and the back has less sizing and it's much more textured. So because we're going to be doing wet into wet underpainting, we definitely want to see this front of the paper. Gives us the best surface. We're going to start by wetting the back of the paper. We do have a little problem with the focus going in and out, so we hope that camera's going to behave itself. So I'm just sort of keeping my hand here to keep the focus. Actually, my paper isn't sliding around. Oh, my hands are dirty. Now we're ready. I always start by wetting the back first. Then I come back and wet the front. You can see already it's trying to curl up. But as soon as both sides are wet, it's going to lay nice and flat. Oh, this is the only way to work. Wet into wet. Colors are going to flow. Energy is going to flow. It's exciting. So we're ready to start. I'm going to go into my larger brush. This is a 1.5 inch brush. And I'm just going to start with some warm color. I'm a big fan of quinacridone burnt orange, as you know. So I think I'll just start with that color. And I'm going to just come in and add some nice shapes. Almost thinking about buildings already. But I like to leave little whites here and there. Don't be getting too ambitious with this. Just kind of dance around the paper. Maybe think about going off the page here and maybe off the page there. But it's really nice if you can just kind of have a little fun. Maybe go off the page here, but see these whites? Whites. Ooh, really important. So let's come over here. Now I want to enrich this color with a little, maybe a little warm. This is some Quin Coral. Oh, isn't that pretty? And let's start building up a few shapes here and there. So this underpainting, I think, is really important. It sort of sets the mood for the movement, your path of light, and your path of dark. So far, I'm pretty happy. But I'm a big warm color fan, so I'm going to take maybe some Quin Gold now. And notice how I'm keeping the color in my path of dark. It's not very dark, but it's my path of dark. And if I want to, I might even throw some water at it and get some, I always go bam. And see that start, bam, bam. Oh, that's fun. So I'm going to continue now with adding some gold. This is Quin Gold, one of my favorite colors. And I'm just sort of enriching my path of dark right now. Not a big deal, but a little bit richer. Let's pull a little more red over here. I like that red. Now I want to do some cool. Again, we're going between warm and cool. I really like that. If you see me doing this, what I'm doing is I'm just keeping the paper absolutely flat. A lot of people like to put a piece of masking tape on the dry paper before they start. And what that does is it creates these ripples because the paper stretches when you wet it. So the best thing you can do is just wet the back, wet the front. Look how perfectly flat that is. Couldn't be nicer. Now we're ready to go with some cool color. And for my cool color, I'm going to choose manganese blue. This is such a beautiful color. You can see my paints You've seen this over and over again. I actually cleaned them up today. What do you think? Look at that. Got in there and really dug it in good. And I like my paints dry. So see, all my paints, I filled up the wells, no little turds. They're all nice and full and clean. So this is my manganese blue, beautiful color. Now as some of that seeps into this gray, into this warm color, it's going to gray. So if I were to take a little bit of Quin-burnt orange here, can you see how that grays it down? I like that. I'm doing this on purpose. So now I'm going to come in with the pure blue, pure manganese blue, and I'm going to put it next to these colors, and I'm just going to let them get to know each other. This is pure blue, but they're going to turn gray, and that's okay. We want that to happen. See, if I put it on a white area, I can still get blue. But if I allow it to go into this other area, I'm going to get some lovely grays. So I really like to get the warm, cool thing going. And I'm thinking we might just go a little bit darker. Let's not be too timid. So I'm going to come in now with some extra dark Quin-burnt orange. This is my warm color. And again, I'm staying in my same path of dark, kind of building that up a bit. So now before I make any textures, we're going to take a picture of this underpainting. So this is step number 1. Now this next step is so fun. Notice how we're leading you through the center and out again. There's several choices here. You can come over here, come around, come back. Make sure you have some whites that you've saved in your focal area. Now what I want to do is I want to lead the viewer up there. So I'm just going to take one of these funny little stencils, maybe right through here, and see where the blue is. I picked a blue one. This is my 100 grit sandpaper. I'm just going to sand a little bit of this color into this, and see, it'll follow this movement. Fun. Oh yeah. Now the sprayer, this is very, very wet, but I still always give it a little extra spray. See how my hand is moving? A little extra spray. Now that was blue on blue, but I bumped a little in, so you can just have a little fun with this. I think I'll lead the viewer in over here too. So again, a little sanding here. Jump over my white spot. Maybe do a little over here. And then I'm going to spray it. And up here. So I'm kind of picking on the blue spots, but I don't mind bumping into the orangey ones or a little bit in the white. Every time I spray it, you can see it's getting darker. Oh man, is this looking cool? Now I'm touching off close here and here. I think I'm just gonna go off up here. I always like to go right up to the edge of the paper if I can. There, oh better. Oh, that's wonderful. And the importance of spraying is you have to melt those little particles. And they have to go into the paper and bond with the paper. And when this is completely dry, which I'll show you later, I will be able to paint over this without disturbing that pattern. But if you don't get it wet enough to really go into those fibers of the paper, when you go over it, those little particles will reactivate. So make sure these are totally saturated and wet. So we're going to take another picture of this step. Okay, now I'm excited. I like the colors and the movement and the white. We're on to something. Now we need to start thinking about darks. So I'm going to stick with the similar colors. This is my quinacridone burnt orange. I might even warm it up a little bit with some of the red. And then I'm going to come in with French ultramarine blue. This particular color makes a beautiful dark. And the more I use, I can go all the way to black if I want. And you can see it's got a little purple tone too because I added that red. So I'm going to just go with Quin burnt orange, French ultramarine blue, and a little bit of that warmer color there. And I'm just going to pick this color up. Well, first of all, I'm just going to move some of this color around. And I'm going to start thinking texture. And then sometimes you'll see me dipping. What I'm doing is I'm dipping into this so that I can make some dark shapes, move it around, have some fun, dip into it again, just put it down, move it, stop, move it again, stop. Sometimes if I want a steeple, I can think of steeples. Maybe I want to go off the page, create a dark here. So between dipping in the warmer color, I'm in the warmer color now, I'm going to start thinking about buildings and moving around the picture. And I want to find building shapes, steeples, chimneys, rooftops. But I don't want to get too corny and make the whole thing look just like two windows and another door and you got a happy face. See, I want to get away from that. I want to just kind of push the paint around a little bit, keep it more abstract. And one of my favorite things to do is to pick up the paint just with this corner. So I'm getting that corner, and I definitely want to have some really free shapes. Not necessarily always straight and hard-edged. So I'm going to do a few real free ones. Curvilinear. Why not? And I'm just going to keep moving around here, developing more shapes. Taking the paint that's here and moving it. Getting here some warmer color. I'm still trying to save that white shape there, but I don't mind dipping into it a little bit. Give the viewer a chance to kind of jump across here. And sometimes I touch into these, but I try not to disturb them too much. I kind of like them, so I'm just playing around here. Meanwhile, I'm starting to develop my path of dark. Now I'm going to go off the page up here. Oops, here we go. I'm going to go off the page up here and over here. And I don't want to go directly below, so maybe over here. And then I want to work my way over here. Now I go off here, so maybe I'll go off over here. Now you can see this is getting pretty beat up. This is how easily I can get a new surface. I just cut it and I'm down to a brand new surface. I love it. So now everything's new. And if I want to start doing some richer color, I can do that. So I'm now going to take my Quin burnt orange. Get a nice big dab of it. And I'm going to take my French ultramarine blue. Ooh, look at that. That's getting pretty dark now. I want to get darker. So now I'm going to start thinking about maybe I could start seeing some shape. Maybe that's a chimney. Maybe it's a taller chimney next to it. And maybe I can just develop this whole thing into just a little bit darker area. And I'm always thinking about roof lines. And I could do, remember I made this one earlier? I could do some windows. There could be some windows down here, doorways maybe. Maybe some, what do you call them? Antennas. Do people even have antennas anymore? I don't think so. Have to make a satellite dish. There, we got a satellite dish. And they don't even put those on the roof anymore, I don't think. But I still want to move the viewer into this painting. So come on, let's move into the painting with some color. Notice how I haven't really used a brush yet? This is so much fun. We don't even need to use a brush. But if you're feeling lonesome and you're really wishing you could use a brush, feel free to do that. And so I'm going to come in with some more nice blue color here. And I think I'll make just a little bit bluer up here, let's say. Maybe attach a little blue to this. That'll go off the page. And I definitely have to move over here a little bit. Let's get some more blue over here. Ooh, that felt good. This is way too much fun. Every now and then I like to bless the painting. So I'm going to continue now with more of these darks. Just pick the paint up, scrape it on there. Sometimes I'm thinking of negative shapes, creating some darks that might look like buildings here. And it's kind of ending here and here, so I need to pull some of this over. Better. Maybe even join it with this. Get a little bit darker. And I've got some beautiful blue here too. I'm going to scrape some of that blue on. Then every now and then I just have to do this. We can't have all this perfection. Oops, we don't want a spot though. So we've pretty much led the viewer through the picture here. We've got a few more darks we need to develop over here. This is a very important step, this mark making. Don't you love that sound? We're making marks. We're a mark maker. Now if you feel like your marks are all starting to look alike, hey, go to a bigger one. Now we haven't used the roller as of yet, and I'm going to do a little mark making now with the roller. So again, I'm going to mix up. Maybe I'll mix a little cooler color. I'm just going to take some of this lovely manganese. And see, my brush is dirty, so I'm getting a nice gray, which I like. And then I'm just going to take my roller and go through this. It's not going to load up very good. Now, if you have a foam roller, it's going to probably do a better job. But what I want to do with this, basically, is just make some interesting lines. Sometimes I use it on its edge. Again, it gives me some interesting lines. So I'm just going to roll this around, get some nice shapes. Oh, I like that one. That one turned out really good. Don't lose your white. And you always have to be careful because the roller's 2 inches wide. You don't want it to look like your roller 2 inches all over. So sometimes I put a second row next to what's there, just to give us a little break. Oh yeah, that was fun. Maybe a little one here. So now we've used our roller and we've created a lot of lovely, lovely marks. So we're going to take another picture at this stage and we're going to come back and work on our white path. Well, we're back and you can see that we spent all our energy designing our path of dark, and we still have a lovely path of white. Now, just in case you kind of got lost your path of light, there's still a great way to get it back. First of all, make sure your roller is clean. And see, this roller, it has a nice pressure to it. And all you need to do is lay down a piece of tissue and you can lift out, look it out, lift out that beautiful path. Like I would like to have, but it has to be wet. Some of these areas may be starting to dry a bit. Ah, look at that. So I'm also picking up textures that I like. And as I do this, I'm rolling in textures. Oh, look how pretty. So even over here, I'm just going to put this down. I'm going to do a press, and I'm also going to do it with the corner, with the edge, which creates lines. So see how I've created white lines? Oh, and I like using the same tissue. Even the tissue sometimes will give patterns. Now when it's getting dry, it won't work. So let's say your piece is dry. I'm not sure spraying is going to make it work. A little bit. Now I'd like that white path to go through here. Let's see if, we did it. And I would like to get some interesting white lines. Ah, yeah, I'd love a white line through here. Got it. How about a white line through here? Jeez, imagine doing all this and even getting paid for it. This is great. Okay, now one of the sad things about this is it's starting to dry. I'm lifting out the moisture that's on here. So before I spray it, to keep it wet, I'm going to do one more little trick. And that is, I'm going to lift out some lights. In my path of light, I'm going to lift out some lights here with a stencil. And to do this, I'm going to use a Mr. Clean Magic Eraser. I'm going to take the cleanest water I can find, squeeze it really good, and then I'm going to go under the table and rub it on my pants, because you just want this to be slightly damp, not soaking wet. And now I can start on this white area and lift in and lift out some lovely whites. Look at that. Oh. Now I'm going to do it again, and this time I'm going to move in closer so you can see what I'm doing. So I'm going to put this down, and I always start in the white path and move up, or in the case down. And look at that, we lift out a lovely path here. Right here, remember this area was getting a little dry? I'm going to lift a little something here. A few little shapes, maybe, like I say, start in the white and then break into the dark. Yeah, fun. So we do have some very, very nice little shapes, maybe a couple right in here. We'll come up here and do a couple more at the top. Oh, I like what's happening. Let's back out and you can see the whole picture again. And you should see now that that white path has been developed and expanded. There's more textures. Look at this. How'd that happen? I don't know how that happened. I think there was color on this, and I set it down and it picked up a pattern. Oh, I love stuff like that. Didn't I promise surprises? There's a surprise. Okay, I'm going to do another little textural part here. Lift a little. I love these lines. And I love the fact that they're a little bit curvilinear. That's very nice. Here too, we can just lift out a little path. So I'm always in the whites and just enhancing them a bit. See, I've got some more of those. So now we're ready to do another step using the wax paper. We definitely want to see a little bit more darks. And I also like to add a little bit more texture. So we're going to add more paint and then put the wax paper down. I'm going to stay with the same colors. I'm not going to introduce anything that we haven't used before. So I'm just going to be adding where I have some darks. This is going to reactivate it a bit. And I'm going to, with my hand raised, I'm going to add a little bit more moisture to this, because with the tissue rolling, we've actually dried the paper a little bit. So now I'm just going to come in and add a few more darks, very few, just enough to make a little bit darker statement. And now we're going to put the wax paper on here. And the wax paper, you never know what it's going to do. You can skip this if you don't if you really like what you're doing and you don't want to do this, don't do it. It's just another little fun thing. So for example, I'm going to start with a piece of wax paper here. Notice I ripped it, so I'm going to leave a space. And then I'm going to put it down again and rip it and leave a little space. We'll just see what happens. See, now if it's not sticking, that means it's not wet enough. So a little spray and it will stick. Get down there. See, like this edge is a little bit dry. Oh, show 'em who's boss. There you go. Okay, now if you want to, you can crumple this up and put it down. And that will give you more of a spotted look. I tend to just do it pretty straight. So I rip it real clean and just put it down. So I'm going to put some down here. Again, it's starting to dry. Show 'em who's boss. Just give it a spray and set it down. Seeing as I know how dry it is, this time I'm just going to spray it. And then put it down. Like I say, some people don't like these random textures because they're going to be dark. So it's kind of risky. But I like to live dangerously. Is it going to stick? No, a little more wetness. Ooh. Now we're going to do one more thing. We're going to take color, and it has to be fairly fluid. And I really actually want to let a little bit of color seep underneath these. Paint right on top of them, and let some of the color go underneath. Now you really don't know what's going to happen. I'm just putting this wet next to it. Let it run underneath a little bit. A little bit up here. See, I paint right on top. It's not doing much. But when I hit the edges, it's doing some interesting added textural stuff. You could even pick it up and set it down. I don't want to do that. See, I just want it to seep underneath there and do its own thing. So now I'm done with that. This is it. One last death-defying act. Salt. I save the salt for the very end. If you put the salt down before now, you wouldn't be able to work the roller. You wouldn't be able to put down wax paper. Salt, when salt is laid on the surface, it just inhibits anything else. So I do want some salt textures. So I'm just going to freely throw some of this salt around. I usually like to have the salt coming off of my whites. So that's kind of where I put it. And now we're going to take a final picture of our underpainting. When this is dry, I'm going to come back and hopefully finish the painting. Well, my painting is dry and I'm ready to do the finishing. But very often we need some additional ideas to do these building forms. We're not sitting and looking at buildings right now, we're in a studio. So I find that looking at photographs and looking at photographs that have been adapted by the use of some of these apps I've been sharing with you, very helpful indeed. So we're going to go to the app, and the first app that you should be familiar with if you've watched my online course, or if you've been on YouTube. It's also on YouTube. It's free. And it's called Pencil Sketch 2. You can see it here. It's got that picture of an old-fashioned looking face with the number 2 in the corner. And this app is absolutely incredible. So, for example, I can take, oh, where is it? It's supposed to be real easy to find. There it is. This is a picture that I took in Rio de Janeiro a couple years ago. We were just traveling along and you could look at this photo I mean, you could look at this little village going by, and I thought, oh, those shapes, those building shapes are terrific. So I decided to try this. And then see, once you've got the picture, you do the green button and it takes you into the app. And then you can, first of all, it's nice, always nice to develop it into a black and white. And then there's all these choices like colored pencils and totally just black and white, which I like. See how it shows the path of dark and the path of light? And then as you go through these, more than 50, they just go on and on. You can just pick whatever you want. This one I always like. It just gives you 3 values. One value's in red, and one value's in black, and one's in gray. And the buttons down at the bottom, every button is different. Like you can even put it into a vignette. So I share all this on my YouTube video. So now we're gonna go back, and I'm gonna show you a second app that I really like. And this one I just shared on my lesson called Less is More. And this one is called Mobile Monet. And you can see the lady with the hat. And you go in. And on this one, I'll take the same picture again. It's right here. So there's the photograph. And on Mobile Monet, it does 2 things. It immediately does a black and white. And again, you can see the path of dark, the path of light. And then this one's kind of fun. You just take your finger and you color wherever you want. I mean, I'll just do the whole thing. And this just kind of reduces it to shapes and colors. And it's not realism, it's just lovely shapes and color. So hopefully those apps will be helpful for you. So we're back at where we left our picture. And the last thing I did was put down this wax paper. And sometimes it really sticks. You have to get in there and lift it off. You can see they turn very white. You think, oh no, what did I do to my painting? But then when you take it off, you realize, yay, we got some darks and some very nice textures. Now remember, this is an option. Not everybody likes to use the wax paper, but I do because it gives us another random, I think, kind of exciting deal. And this is also full of salt. Now if you take the edge of a piece of mat board or a credit card, you can clean up all the salt. It's really clean and it's really nice. I'll just scrape it onto the table here. So it's always a good idea to remove the salt and then evaluate what we have. Now I printed out some of these. Here's that image. Here's another one I reduced just to lines. This is what I just recently in Italy. This was cool. This was an ancient civilization. But see, there's always some little section that could be helpful. So in this case, I think I'm just gonna set this here and allow it to influence me. And I'm gonna start developing some of the shapes here. Again, I need a dark color. So what I'm going to do is stay with the same colors. This happens to be the quinacridone burnt orange, keeping this in a kind of limited palette, and the French ultramarine blue. Now the French ultramarine blue is great because this color goes all the way to black. And then if you want, you can have a warm dark. I might leave some of the pure color too. So we've got quin burnt orange, a lighter mixture of French ultramarine blue, and a darker mixture that is almost black. And then if we want to, we can even go to where it's quite blue. So you see we're somewhere between cool and warm. And our picture is basically orange and blue. So we'll be able to just use these colors to our advantage. So the first thing I want to do is start developing some darks in here. So now I'm just looking at this. It's kind of fun. See, there's like doorways. So I'm just going to grab this darkest color. Oh, I can see that my little piece of mat board's in kind of rough shape here. Look at that, brand new. So if I want to work on some doorways and maybe something over here, something dark coming down, little top to the doorway. And then it's really nice to have a couple of smaller shapes, like we talked about earlier. These could be some of the windows. So maybe I'll add a window over here. And then I really like some of these shapes here. They're kind of rounded, moving along. And I always like to scratch this into dry brush. So just coming in here and pushing this around into kind of a dry brush is nice. And maybe we need another rooftop here. Maybe another rooftop over here. Who knows what these are? Towers. It's just fun to play with shapes. And always I like to pull the viewer all the way off the edge of the paper. So let's develop some darks all the way to the edge here. And put some details into it. Oh, I like that. Every now and then I'm working with this little corner that allows me to draw shapes, almost like a pencil line. So I think I'm going to do some diagonals here. I'm looking at some of these shapes. This is kind of fun. I have no idea what that is, but I like it. So again, I'm looking now to bring the value deeper. And I already like these shapes, so I'm just going to emphasize them by going darker. See, this is kind of cool. It looks like chimneys. Now I don't want you to think that you can't use a brush, paint and a brush. So I'm going to sneak over here and I'm going to grab my 1/2 inch flat brush and I'm going to go into some blue, kind of like a sky blue. This is the manganese I used earlier. I'm bumping into some of these shapes. Ooh, this is a pretty kind of diagonal shape there. I like that. So I'm just playing. I really don't have any idea what's going to happen. I'm just kind of making my way through here. When I see something I like, I kind of single it out. I think I'll save some lights here. Now, I don't want to leave this edge hard. So I'm going to come in here and lose the edge. And the way I do that is to shake out my brush and then take the extra moisture off on a tissue and I start outside the edge and move in. And see, that gives me this lovely lost edge. So now you can see the edge moving in. I think what we'll do is we'll just keep moving along here. I really like that blue. Let's find some more shapes here. Starting to look like another building. Ooh, this is cool. With a little tower, almost like a castle. I see another shape here, kind of a roof shape. Here's another little shape. Very cool. Let's pull that up off the top here as we move along. Maybe we could design in some shapes that are partly in this light area. And then anytime you get kind of nervous about, I don't know if I like this. Oh, I don't know what to do. I think I'll make that smaller. And then whatever you do, don't leave that edge hard. Wet your brush, shake it out, take the extra moisture off, start outside and push in and lose that edge. Anytime you're unsure of yourself, lose the edge. I've got a saying, I always say, when in doubt, fuzz it out. It works pretty good. So I kind of like this now. We've got the white shape. See, I didn't want to mess up that white shape. Now I'm going to pass over the white shape, and I think I'll pull some blue over here. Again, almost outlining some shapes, maybe a roof line. I can go even darker. I can put a little bit of this darker blue in there too. It's a little French ultramarine. I can also pick it up with my piece of mat board. That always gives me a little bit darker line, which is nice. And when you push the paint around, you always get those lovely outlines. That's what I like about it. I really like that. I think I better put some over here too. Again, when in doubt, fuzz it out. Now, sometimes these look like buildings you might see in a big city, and other times they start to look like something you might see in a small village. So, for me, I don't really care. I don't have a theme on this painting. I just want it to look like buildings. So again, I'm going to pull this blue, pull the blue down, and then I'm going to wet my brush, shake it out, and lose this edge. Fuzz it out. I just want that to be lost. I want all the emphasis to be through here. Now, sometimes it's very exciting to develop these edges. See here, this is like negative painting, but we could also do positive painting. And one of the ways to do it is to simply draw in some shapes, because, you know, we're not sure. So how about if I come over here and I look at some of these shapes? Like I could do a positive shape. I'm looking at this right now. And I could do another shape coming across here. I'm looking at this one. And then some of these shapes can just get kind of built into it. And look at that, there's kind of a telephone or a power pole here of some sort. And maybe the suggestion of another, let's find another building here. Oh, this is kind of fun too, these corrugated shapes. I kind of like that. Going across. So see, we could start to develop some areas that become positive shapes coming out versus the negative shapes here that I've built by going behind. So let's just add a few more shapes here. I'm being very cautious because I don't want to lose my white area. So I think I'm just going to do another, like a little lean-to here, and that's going to be it. So now this time I'm simply going to take, and I'll just go over some of these pencil lines. Sometimes I'm going to pull the paint across with my little window size. And I love it when that happens. We're getting kind of a nice dry brush. Oh yeah, sometimes a kid gets lucky. And then we're going to come down. Give her a little overhang. And then we want to develop some interesting shapes down here too. Some kind of a dark. Breaking into this. Now we might want to put some windows on this. See, windows are always good. Trying to do buildings, it's fun to do windows, but do lots of them. They get weaker with each one. And if you find the color is just too much, too attention getting, just dab it. Or simply take a damp brush and soften it a bit. So anytime you think this is taking over, you're in control. You can lose edges, do whatever you want. I kind of like it, so I'm going to just come back and add that in. Maybe dab it a little bit. So I do want to now think about developing more things, breaking out into this. Here's a little corrugated roof line. Here we've got a telephone pole or power line of some sort. Now anytime you want to, you can switch from warm to cool. I'm going to put some cool colors into this area because I really like what happened when I added the cool colors up there. So I'm going to pull some blue into this, pull some blue over here. Guess I have to get a little more color in that. There, now we should be able to pull some blues in here. Even across here would be, I think, nice to add some cool colors. Down here we can add some more cool color. I kind of like that power pole, but I thought it looked kind of lonely. So I'm going to add some more power poles around. We're in an industrial area here. Now, whenever I want to emphasize a power pole, hey, this is a good time to add some lines. But these make kind of heavy lines. So if you want to add lines, you're better off doing it with a painting knife. So we might just add some power lines in here. That's kind of fun. So we'll move around the picture and maybe add some power lines. Maybe add some more power poles. And I like adding them into the wet here because they melt and it gives a feeling of distance. So I kind of like what's happening now. We're starting to move through the picture. And I think what we'll do is I'll just go ahead and just finish this. And we'll speed it up a bit. Well, it's time for me to evaluate what do I need. And one of the things I feel I need is just something to cross through here. Just something wild. See, I like these lines. So I'm just going to get really brave and just do some lines that come through here. Maybe something over here. Notice I'm not with a real dark color. Oh, that feels so much better. Same with down here. I think I need something breaking out. Could even be kind of a dry brush. Something connecting. I love this blue over here. Maybe a little more blue. That's a nice little passage. I think we're moving through here a little better now. Maybe even a little passage. See, I like having that white, but I don't want it too obvious. There, better. Okay, another off the page. Maybe something up here. Maybe just a blessing. Maybe a dirty brush. Just sort of a few little spots. Oh yes, that's good. And sometimes I like to bless it if it's too white and just spray into it. Just let it become a nice soft. Same down here. See, those become transitional shapes. Hopefully you can see those. They're just little dots, but I love dot, dot, dot moving into a white. Same here. I like these dots. Well, I think I'm as done as I'm going to be at this point. I hope you enjoy this lesson. It's quite a challenge. Get yourself some references if you're not sure what to do, or do it on location. Set up on location. All you have to do is bring a few of these little mat boards with you and a sprayer, and you're all set to go.